This is a tutorial on how to loom knit a monkey, and here's what our monkey looks like. And I will also provide some more simplistic version if you do not feel comfortable with some of the techniques but really would like to have the capability of making a monkey, so I'll note those. The items you'll need is a 24 peg loom and a 12 peg loom. Now what I've done is I've gone ahead and done a drawstring cast on, and I've worked flat for 24 pegs, and I've went ahead and E-wrapped for 9 rows. And that's pretty standard. If you want an example of that, go to my How to Loom Knit a Teddy Bear. Okay, so I've already E-wrapped 3 in and changed my color over to a tan. But don't cut the brown. We'll be picking it back up. So what we're going to do is we're going to E-wrap 6 pegs for 4 rows. We're going to work our first ear. There's 2. There's 3. And 4. Now you want to E-wrap the 4 pegs in between those for 3 rows. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now you want to add E-wrap 6 for 4 rows. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now if you don't feel comfortable with this next step, you can just pick up the brown and E-wrap over these 6 pegs. But I'm lazy and I don't like doing a whole lot of sewing, so this kind of closes up the ears without me having to sew it. So you're going to bring your original loops back on to your 6 pegs, and you should be able to see the brown loops easily. Again, if you don't feel comfortable with this and you'd rather just sew the ears up, skip this process and go ahead and E-wrap the 6 pegs with the brown. This just saves you from having to sew the ears up. Normally it doesn't give me this much fuss. Okay, now that you've done that, I go ahead and I toss the bottom loop over. Get it back down to one loop on each peg. And then pick up your brown and E-wrap those 6, and then you're going to E-wrap 6 more, so you're going to E-wrap 12. So here's your first 6. And there's your ear. Okay, and now you're going to E-wrap 6 more. This is going to be the top of your head. Okay, now you're going to pick your tan back up, and you're going to go in and you're going to E-wrap 6 after the 6 you just did. This is going to be your other ear. It should basically be directly across from the other ear. You should have 3 more pegs to E-wrap. So E-wrap 6 for 4 rows, E-wrap 4 for 3 rows, and E-wrap 6 for 4 rows. Just like we did on the first ear. Now you're 4 for 3 rows. And now you're 6 for 4 rows. Okay. Again, if you don't feel comfortable with bringing those original loops back onto the pegs, you can go ahead and after this pick up the brown and E-wrap back to your starting point. But at this point we're going to bring our original loops back on, and this keeps us from having to sew the ears up separately. And toss your bottom loop over the top. And you'll want to tie off your tan, but then you'll want to go ahead and E-wrap those 6. And then you can tie off your tan and then E-wrap the last 3. And there you can see you have 2 ears. Let's go ahead and snip the end and tie it off. And then E-wrap your last 3. And that's your ear row. Now you want to go ahead and E-wrap 24 for 2 rows in the brown, then change to the tan and E-wrap 24 for 4 rows. So you'll have a total of 6. 2 for brown, 4 for tan, and we'll go from there. So go ahead and pause the video and we'll get back to what's next. This is what you should have. 2 and then 4. So now we want to do an internal decrease, and there's 2 options. This is the first option. On each half, go ahead and pick up 11 total loops and put them onto your hook. This is the first option. There's 2 options. Either way that makes you feel more comfortable is all that matters. We're just trying to get from 24 loops to 12 loops. And on that note, you're going to put 2 loops on each peg. By doing it this way, it saves you from having to tighten the loops. But if you do it the other way, because you're working with less pegs on your hook, that's okay too. Just whatever you feel comfortable with. So there is option 1 that you can do on both sides. Now here is going to be option 2 if it makes you feel more comfortable. Decrease by every other peg all the way around if you'd like. Now with the first style, you just E-wrap and toss the loops over. Which leaves you not having to tighten the loops on the first way of doing this. Now, on the other way, you're only going to E-wrap the pegs with loops on them. Toss both loops over. And now you're going to bring all those loops together. So that only puts you putting a few loops on the hook rather than several. Go ahead and pick up all the loops and place them right beside each other. And because we've done it that way, we're going to have to go back in and we're going to need to make sure that we tighten up those loops so that we have a nice clean indentation between our face and our snout. So go ahead and tighten those loops up. And that is your internal decrease. And now you've just created your snout area. Now you want to do 6 rows of E-wrapping 12 pegs for 6 rows and cast off. So here's what you should have. It's cast off, and that's what it should look like. And so you're going to sew up the snout, and we're going to sew it up flat rather than drawstring it together. So what I like to do is put the center smashed in, and I sew up one side and then the other. That puts your seam for the snout underneath, as you can see. And I usually push the needle through and then sew up the other side. And there you have a flat kind of mouth area. Now what I'm going to do is sew up all the way to the tan. Normally I only sew to the actual decreased area, but for this pattern I'm going to sew all the way up to the tan area where it ends. But as you can see, there's your face area showing up. And then you'll just tie off the end. And that completes the front. Now you want to drawstring the back end as tight as you can. And you'll notice there is a hole, and we're going to close that little hole up. So I'm going to flip it inside out. And I'm going to connect the two ends together. And pull it as tight as I can. And then I'm going to go in a way where you do, like on the face of the clock, I'm going to hit 9, 12, and 3. So there's your 9, and 12, and 3. And what this does is make sure that it's nice and closed up. It closes that hole up completely, and then you'll want to tie it off. So if you've ever wondered how to completely close the back, that's how you do it. And then go ahead and flip it right side out and stuff the head. And then we're going to move on to our body. So there you have it. Okay, you're going to need your loom, your 24 peg loom again, and it's pretty easy. It's a tube. You're going to E-wrap 24 for 5 rows, purl for 1, and then do 20 rows, and this is what you should have. So there's your 5, there's your 1, and there's your 20. At this point, go ahead and you want to cast off, and then you want to close at the bottom and do just like you did with the head, going on the face of a clock to really make sure that that bottom gets closed off. And then you'll want to stuff it. So the body's pretty self-explanatory, and so we're going to start on the arms next. You're going to need your 24 peg loom again, and what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and draw a string cast on 18 pegs, as you can see here, and then you're going to E-wrap 6 rows of 18 pegs. And so that's pretty self-explanatory, and we're going to work in our thumb area now. So what we want to do is we want to E-wrap 8 pegs. Then we're going to work the next 2 pegs to create a thumb. And we're going to do is E-wrap those 2 pegs for 5 rows. So there's row 1, and row 2, row 3, row 4, 5. Now I'm going to bring my original loops back, and you're going to follow the next connecting strand, as you can see there, and then you're going to pick that loop up and put it back. And you do that with both of them. And that way you don't have to sew up the thumbs. And I like to go ahead and toss the bottom loop over the top. And now you have a little thumb. Now you're going to finish the row up, and you're going to E-wrap 8 pegs. And now you're just going to E-wrap 18. And now you're going to do a decrease by 1 on each end, and then you're going to E-wrap 16. This is creating a nice indentation for a hand area. Okay, now you're going to want to change to the brown color, so we can start working up towards the upper arm area, but we're going to need to decrease 2 more times. So go ahead and change to your brown color. And this time we don't need to keep our tan attached. We can snip it. Okay, now you want to decrease by 1 on each end again, and then you're going to E-wrap 14 pegs. Toss the bottom loops over. Okay, and now we're going to decrease one more time on each end. And you're going to E-wrap 12. Okay, now you want to E-wrap 12 for 15 rows, and then go ahead and cast off. And after you do that, then you'll want to draw string. You want to make 2, and you're going to draw string the end, and then you're going to sew it up the side, and keep with your colors, tan and brown with that, and then you're going to stuff. And you're going to make 2 of those. Just go ahead and pause the video to complete that, and we'll start on the legs. The legs have lots of options. I've gone ahead and I've draw strung on all 12 pegs, and I've E-wrapped 8 rows. And I'm going to work the little toe or thumb area on the foot, and we're going to E-wrap 2 for 5 rows. And you see that I'm kind of going back and forth from my starting point. So I am using my 12th and 1st peg to create this toe or thumb for the left side. And you don't have to do this section if you don't feel comfortable with it. You can just kind of leave it as is. Go ahead and put your original loops back on, following the previous, just like we did with the arm. And toss the bottom loop over. Now if you're going to do the right side, you're just going to do the opposite peg. So you're going to E-wrap 5 and then do the E-wrap 2 for 5 rows on pegs 6 and 7. You're just going to do the opposite side. Go ahead and E-wrap all the way around. And if you don't want to do the thumb areas at all, then just go ahead and E-wrap 9 rows and work this heel area. So wrap and turn the next peg, and then you're going to E-wrap 6. And you are passing your starting point on that wrap and turn. So I've wrapped and turned, and I've E-wrapped 6. And you're only going to toss over the 6 that you E-wrapped. You're going to leave that wrap and turn alone. And you're going to wrap and turn and E-wrap 5, which should stop you just before your next wrap and turn. Wrap and turn the next and E-wrap 4. Wrap and turn the next peg and E-wrap 3. Okay, and wrap and turn the next peg and E-wrap 2. Wrap and turn the next peg and E-wrap 2. Okay, now you're going to E-wrap 3 and slowly start adding back in those wrap and turn pegs. And you're going to E-wrap 4. And then 5. And then 6. And then E-wrap 7. And then you'll E-wrap back to your starting point, and yes, you'll have one more wrap and turn, but that's okay. And you can see you have a heel area here with the little toe. And here's your foot. And then you want to E-wrap 7 back to your starting point, and then you're going to change colors. And so you know that's there, it's okay, that's not a big deal. Now you want to change to the brown color. And snip your tan. And then you want to E-wrap 12 pegs for 10 rows and cast off. Now if you don't have a 12 peg loom, just follow the bare legs and change the color when you start to decrease on the bare legs, and make sure you do 10 rows. So go ahead and sew your toe up and stuff, and you'll want to make 2 of those. And again, to do the toe on the other side, follow the opposite 2. So there's your 2, and you're going to E-wrap 5, and you're going to do that 2 row on 6 and 7 for 5 rows, and then bring the loop back up, and then finish the row out and do the heel. So that's how you do it. But you don't have to if you don't want to. You can do just a heel, and if you don't have a 12 peg loom, use the bare leg pattern. Now we're going to kind of go through the notes on assembling. You're going to see that it's already assembled, but this is going to be the easiest way to visually explain it. So what you want to do is you want to sew the head on first, and the head gives you the guideline on sewing your arms and your legs and your tail. So your head's your guideline. You want to sew it on first. So go ahead and sew it on first. Then you want to sew your arms on, and they're going to be lined up with the ear. You're going to line it up with the ear and sew it at the very top of the body, as you can see right here. So line up with the ear and sew at the very top of the body on both sides, and you want to make sure that your thumbs are facing up on your hands. So you want to make sure those are facing up. And what you want to do next when you want to sew on your legs you want to follow where the arms are. You want to make sure those toes are facing inwards towards each other when you go to sew these on. So make sure of that. So what you want to do is you want to follow the line where the arm is and the outer edge down to the purled line, and then you want to sew the leg onto that purled line. And you want to follow the outer edge down to the purled line and sew it on. So the outer edge of your legs is going to be lined up with your arms and sewed down on the purled line. Remember to make sure that your little toes are facing in and that the center is open. And you want to line your tail up with the back of the head, and you're going to sew it on the purled line at the base of the body. So there's the center, lined up, back, sewn on. So now that you've done that, you're going to want to sew in or glue your eyes on. And how you're going to do that is you're going to line the eyes up with the inner corners of the ear and draw a line down to the base of the snout. As you can see, there's the base of the snout, and you're going to glue or sew the eyes on there, and then you're done. You should have your monkey.